It's not just about knowing how to code. You need to be able to communicate. And when I say communicate, I don't mean accent. And I don't even mean very, very good English. That's not what I mean. Because the truth is, I work with a lot of Indians, a lot of people from China on different projects. That you can't even hear what they are saying sometimes. So I want you to understand that, right? A lot of things that you think are disadvantages that prevent you from potentially competing, they are really not. They're actually advantages. People have learned to understand the Nigerian accent because of where I am with my career right now. When I speak, I don't speak like the people around me. I speak like this. And they've learned to understand and to communicate with me. Why? Because I have something to offer. I've not been mediocre. And that's what I want you to go take away with you. Do not be mediocre. Be the guy that knows extra. Don't be the front end guy. Don't be the cursory back end guy. And again, apply yourself. And that's what I want to say at this point in time. I want to leave you with. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I just want you to leave. I want to leave you with that. Do not be mediocre. It will make the difference. Thank you very much.
So, taking off from where Mr. Dayo finished his talk, yes, do not be mediocre. But the question I'll say you should ask yourself, given where you are, is where do you see yourself? You have to be very honest with that question. And you should also be brave in setting that vision for yourself. Okay, do I see myself as a remote engineer working for X? You can even be very specific. I want to work for this particular firm. You can create that outlandish, so to speak, vision for yourself, where you want to see yourself. You want to see yourself running your own company. I'll tell you, I've always known that I was going to run my own company. In fact, I feel like when I went into employment, it was by mistake. But it was also something I value and cherish a lot, because if I was operating at the standard, this set here, the experience I got from working at Accenture took my standard here. Okay. So when you build that vision of yourself, the next thing you need to understand, and that's where the hard work is what are the gaps? How do I get myself from where I am to where I want to be? It requires a lot of bravery, a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, a lot of networking. And this comes in various forms, to be able to harness and stay focused on your goal. It's very abstract, but to concretize it, you are an engineer, or you think you're an engineer. As today I still code. I've been coding for, I think, almost 25 years now. The more I learn, the more I know that I don't know enough. So I've noticed that as young people, when you have small skill, you feel on top of the world. You feel like I've arrived. But to put it into perspective, it's because you don't know more than your nose, right? The more you learn, the more you know that there's a vast world out there. Even if you just look at the area of technology, even if you zone in on programming, software engineering, right? And going by what Mr. Dayo said, do not be mediocre means I didn't study computer science. I didn't study physics, or I studied mechanical engineering. And then I started learning how to code. I started from a very high level language. But what I did consciously was that I kept asking myself, how do I understand improve my depth of understanding. So, and how do you do this? When you're reading, when he said read white papers, the secret to learning really is studying and being sure that you understand the words that you're reading, right? People read technical documents. People read on, web services architecture, or some kind of authentication, role-based authentication. Some people don't even understand the real meaning of, say, authentication. Some people say, oh, bytes are transferred from this. Some people don't understand what it means to say serialization or serialization. You don't need to understand this from the onset. I'm just making an example. When you're learning and you want to be very good at what you do, you need to start from the high level and then begin to challenge yourself to understand lower level details, even up to assembly programming language. You need to challenge yourself because the world is a global space and you want to be competitive. For you to be competitive, you need to set really high standards for what you want to understand. Okay, so whether you're going into, like you said, don't restrict yourself to back-end engineering. Understand, appreciate. Even if you're working as a back-end engineer, appreciate. And all of this that we're still saying is still within the software engineering space. I personally had to take myself out of the software engineering space because I was running a business and started learning about the non-engineering concepts, like what is a business, what is a startup, right? What does it mean to register a business? What does it mean to have a co-founder? What is a co-founder agreement? You're not too young to learn all these things. I was watching a video recently of a 23-year-old entrepreneur in the US. He started his startup at age 15. I can't remember his name now, but you can ask me afterwards, I'll tell you. His company is valued over $1 billion today. And what is his solution? He created a platform that helps independent venture funds, not the big banks in America, to be able to manage and automate their processes. Right? He suffered a lot, of course. This 8 years, he started very early. And the path to success is failing fast, failing forward. When you get a disappointment, you're trying to, because at this level, I can imagine the kind of challenges you're grappling with. Oh, I'm debugging this problem. I'm not making headway. Right? It's okay to have those problems, but do not be discouraged. You have to have your goal. That's why it's very important to have a compelling vision. Because your vision, when it's compelling enough, it will drive you towards your goal. When you face difficulty, you can overcome. And you have to be brave. Know that nothing is impossible. If you think anything is impossible, trust me, you won't get to where you want to be. You need to look at, you have to try to reverse the way you look at life. Okay? You have to be an outlier to make an impact. Which means you probably have friends, they are more focused on other things and not. Everybody here is sacrificing one way or the other. Because for you to have this interest to come and sit here, and mind you, I'm quite impressed because there's a strong, what I call it, idea, let's say, idea energization happening here, whether you like it or not. Other things you should look at is mentorship. Mentorship does not always mean you have somebody you're calling. It could be you identify 3 entrepreneurs that are successful and you want to know their life history. You want to learn about their challenges. You need role models. You need success stories that will drive you through your hardship. And it's a step by step. Like I said, My first startup was registered, I think 2011. That's 12 years ago. I've had all kinds of challenges. I'm saying this because, in fact, now it's easier to be a founder
Yes.
than it was 10 years ago, right? And there's so much information available online. Like I said, our first startup, we had one table. So you're on the right path. You're going to have challenges. You're going to surpass them. Build a strong vision. Be ready to be disciplined. Uh, you know, grow your skill set, grow your depth of understanding, and be optimistic. Right. So yeah, that's fine.
So I don't think you want to add what Dayo and Sheldon said. You guys are at a stage where what you do over the next 6 months to 1 year will significantly impact and affect the rest of your lives. So you've got to be very clear in your head what kind of outcomes, what kind of life you want to have later on. So I mean, everybody's here at some point in time being a young person or a younger person because of them. And having to make choices between, what you call the immediate gratification. That is, should I have fun now or should I have fun later? The advantages of understanding needing to put in the work now is you will quicken, usually it takes X number of years to get to where you need to get to. But with technology, with the way the world is right now, you're focusing on this learning, broadening your skill sets means that before you know it, you are able to earn, attractively. You're able to work anywhere in the world, right? You're not limited to working in Lauren, you're working with people. And so my advice, same advice I give young people everywhere, is it's a fantastic time to be young. It's
True.
a really, really fantastic time to be young. So there's this thing called Google where you just type in whatever you wanted to. Yeah. When I was, your age, I basically chased me from the library.
A Lauren library.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I go to Lagos, I'll go to British Council Library.
Yeah.
And what I used to chase it because I used to photocopy everything inside that place. I used to photocopy. In fact, after a while, the librarian agreed that I should be buying the ink because the tried chasing me, I'll come with so you will not be buying the ink. So I used to photocopy books. Yeah. You don't need to do that. You've got so much knowledge in it. That means you have no reason whatsoever not to remove the best version of yourself as possible. Access to knowledge, there's not ChatGPT, there's bad. There are things that can break down things to you. There's something called studying which you're from, where you use to copy what the lecturer is saying, and if you don't agree with something, you tap on it, explain it more detail. Oh, you have no excuse.
It's there.
You have no excuse. You can, if I ask a question like, how do you make? Let me make you laugh. So, at a point in time in my, I think it was in 100 level or two. I don't think you remember this. It was 100 or 2 level or two. I wanted to start making chocolates to sell. So I went to buy 1 liter.
I remember.
And milk, and I was mixing. Remember, I was mixing it. 1 liter and milk. You know why I was buying monitor? Because I didn't know how to make it. You guys check on Google now and type how to make it. You will get the answer in 10 seconds. I spent 3 months reading. I didn't even have the books were not even available because
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I asked a friend who was traveling to Lagos, he's going down to the bridge in Ikeja where they were selling second-hand books. I said, you can find a book on how to make something. I've been mixing chocolate, I've been mixing monster for 2 months, I realized that's why I make something. I kept on wondering why wasn't it getting hard. I kept on trying to look for emulsifiers and things to add. And if I came from that time, and I could be this, and you came from that time, and I could work with NASA. You have to understand, this is my red computer science. When did you have your first computer?
My first computer was in perhaps maybe 200. I bought myself after university. But my first exposure to a computer, it was probably 300 levels.
You understand?
200, 300.
The first time you touched computer is 300 levels, 1 more year to go.
You're studying computer science.
I was studying computer science.
And he works in NASA. I don't really think I need to say more. All I'll leave you with this is this. You will be who you want.
Yeah.
You will be who you want. You will not be who someone else says you are, or who someone else tries to make you into. I have a friend who his mom died, his dad had another wife. He was treated like a houseboy in the house. He was beaten, they didn't pay school fees. But right now, one of the most successful bikers because he decided on who he was going to be. Kamal and Brian and who are doing such a wonderful job. If you ask Kamal, who put you on? Who put you on? Who taught you? Who gave you the platform? Right? You're self-learning. There's a platform for you, there's a community. If you tried this community thing 20 years ago, 50 years ago, we used to come and be arrested.
Yeah.
Or what are we planning? So take advantage of the time you are in. It's the best time for young people to make a lot of results. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. That was impactful. That was impactful. Great note to finish.
Thanks so much, Mr. Adewale Adisa. We really appreciate your time today. I think what I believe we've been able to learn a lot of things. But number one that catches my attention is because I see work with different companies and I work with teams, so I see the lack of that communication. In a lot of people know even have, you see a programmer, you can write JavaScript from A to Z, but tell them to come and present what you want. Not be able to do that. We see them in the, and that's the reason why we do organize communication and a soft skill workshop often because we know it's very, very essential. And secondly, don't be a breakover. I think we all understand that we need to expand shifts, right? And most importantly, like you said, we do not have any excuse, right? 6, 7 years ago when I met Kama, this same street, when I'm coming from my own house, I stay at Akita. We don't even used to have life for 3 months. So I'll be walking one day and I'll see Kama walking with his dirty jean that time. And we are going to the same place. The hall that we met, I didn't even know the meaning of hall. I didn't even know until when they chased us away that you guys did not pay, so please go. So we don't have any excuse today. We have access to resources, tools, AI tools are there. You can easily come and meet anybody in this world and say, oh, please, I don't understand this thing. Compared to those that are learning with YouTube or gaming, right? So you don't have any excuse, and then we need to appreciate them today for taking their time to talk to us, right? Before we open question, please, the listener I want to ask Mr. Adewale Adisa. About 5 years ago, the first thing that we noticed in Lorry inquired that we don't have that community, we don't have a platform whereby young people can come together and learn things. And that's why we said, okay, let's do community. I remember we used to follow night bus to Lagos because we want to attend events. So now today we have community. We have about 15 communities in Lorry today, thanks to choir building and changes, right? But another thing that we believe that we are lacking is, we have a lot of people that are working remotely. We have people that are working as senior engineers globally. We have them in the Lorry today, plenty of them. But we do not have that startup mentality because a lot of people are learning here. Even little kids, you are going to see them writing crazy JavaScript, building amazing stuff. But I think they should have that building solution mindset right now. So what do you have to say to that?
Okay, so first of all is, I'm going to determine that you ask different questions. So the answer to the first question is, so communities are built, and they are built over time. And it has to be done intentionally. And I know, in Kamal and you have been speaking a lot about, let's have a calendar for the year. Let's have a central, and I think MALhub is perfectly placed to be that quarterback, that coordinator, where we try and reach out to as many people as possible, and we try and fill a calendar of different events by different people, so that throughout the year, the calendar events are happening. There are meetups, there are XYZ, just as number one. Number two, with regards to the startup culture, not everybody is a founder. So please don't be under pressure because you are learning to code. By force by fire, you must be a founder. It's not everybody that's a founder. A lot of founders end up earning less money than they would if they are just going and not their job. Ask him, he knows that he makes a lot more money. Ask him, he knows he can make a lot more money just coming to Lagos. Am I lying? If you go and get a job, you get money now. Founders are missionaries, right? They are passionate about solving a problem. So how do we do that? I know that yesterday we were with Commissioner of Finance.
Yeah.
And we were with Temi.
The head of innovation hub.
The innovation hub, and that was it. And I see a coming together. So usually an ecosystem, is made up of talent, right? Capital, that's something that very work on, because no matter how talented you are, you do need some funds to stick together and a community that we're working on. So I think what you will find is in the next 1 year to 2 years, you will see a lot of differences on the startup side. But on the community side, I think MALhub, we are the best place to try and activate. I don't know if that answers.
Thank you, Douglas. Yes, I think you answered the question perfectly. Thanks so much for that. Another thing is
Dayo.
yeah, Mr. Dayo, yeah. So I know you pass through a lot of challenges because it's not easy to work at NASA. It's not just easy. So when you are starting, can you just briefly tell us challenges, right? Having access to quality education, right? I'm not talking about university, but in tech, right?
Yeah.
And then how you're able to position yourself to say, oh, I want to work at NASA, and then how you get there. I think it's going to.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. You know, you learn every day, and I've never heard anyone say something the way my good friend put it earlier on, in terms of when you set a goal, when you set a high goal, right, and then you start working towards that goal by understanding what it takes, the different steps to get to that goal. So post university for me, I worked briefly as a software developer for a year, and I determined it was not for me. I wanted to be in infrastructure. I wanted to stay in the infrastructure space, right? And immediately at the time, I set myself eyes on the goal of becoming what they call an internetworking expert. At the time, there was only one in Nigeria. At the time in Nigeria, there were only 3 in Africa. You couldn't even complete the process anywhere in Africa at the time, right? But I had that aspiration. From that point, it took me 7 or 8 years to achieve that goal. But of course, that goal requires steps and writing exams, writing certifications, attending certain seminars and all that, doing papers. You had to get to that level. And to get to that level, there was also a lot of failing. But what I did was set a goal, right? And then work towards it. And that was elevating my game. And as my game was being elevated, I put myself in communities where people could see what it was I was capable of. And before I knew it, I was getting job offers. And in fact, by my second or third year doing what I did as an infrastructure engineer, I never needed to even attend interviews. It was basically off my networking over the years, through the years that got me that far. And for me, I would say being able to demonstrate and represent the fact that you're someone who, when you open your mouth, the quality of the work you can do is evident. And I said, alluding to communication is key, right? Aspiring for that high goal, those steps, even when you fail at it, prepares you for intermediate opportunities along the way. You get intermediate opportunities that ultimately prepare you for that golden opportunity. And don't despise those intermediate opportunities. Own it. When you have an opportunity to apply yourself, own it. Don't have that slave employee type mindset. Own whatever problem that you are asked to solve. If you are an engineer in a place, think of yourself as a CEO of that space, of whatever it is that you've been given to do. That sense of ownership comes across strongly when people look at you. Because it's not just about the fact that you can write JavaScript or whatever it is that you do. It's about the entire energy, the presence, what you exude. And part of it is communication. Part of it is not being mediocre. Part of it is setting high goals, like you said, and working towards that high goal that you set. So I hope that helps someone. I'm trying to be very tactical, so that you get things you can go home and implement right away. Is my goal in some of my explanations.
So basically, whatever you want to do or whatever you are doing in your career life, make sure you own it 100%. Mr. Sheldon, we would love to ask you this question. You manage a lot of things as a founder, right? So there are a lot of things that you oversee when it comes to employee management, and many that you are managing a lot of talents. So what's your experience, and what do you think, what can you advise people, because all of them you are going to graduate from the position and then become an employee manager. What's that advice?
Thank you. So I'll be imagining that I'm speaking to a technical audience, right? Because the way you manage a salesperson definitely will be different from the way you manage a software engineer. So I think I'll be speaking from the perspective of the software engineer, what you should expect, because I think that's what will be valuable, and how you should relate. First, you should know that you're responsible for yourself. think that's like the very first thing. You need to understand that your destiny is in your own hands. And it's not in the hands of the company you're working with or your manager, or you should have a set journey for yourself. In your day-to-day, it's very important that you are open-minded, you are result-oriented, and you are responsible. Meaning, if you are given tasks, you should not you shouldn't wait for, oh, my manager has not explained how we should write this function or how we should design this API. Use your initiative. Be research oriented. I think the best software engineers are the engineers that are research oriented. Meaning, before, when you're given a task and there's probably going to be a brainstorming session to even break it down, why don't you go ahead? Get ahead of it, right? Task yourself with breaking down these problems. You need the engineers that I believe do well the most are engineers that have ownership of the problems. You know, the way I oversee talent, and one of them is actually here. One of them is here. He works with me remotely. He knows that I understand that you have a trajectory, right, and a maturity scale. And I try to be very conscious that at the beginning you might not know your left from your right, which is fine. Okay. But very, very quickly, I make it important to you that you need to learn to research, to be independent, to prefer solutions. Before, when you ask me a question, how should I do this? The first question I ask, I don't answer your question. I say, what do you propose? And because they know I'll always ask that question, if you have a problem, you don't come to Shegun if you've not researched about it. That's very, very essential. It's very important in how I manage technical resources, because what that does is it pushes the responsibility to the talent to say, okay, I have this problem. I have enormous wide array of tools, like Mr. Wale said, from Google to ChatGPT to Stack Overflow. The list goes on and on. So have you taken ownership of that problem? Have you tried to resolve it? Are you a team player? Are you a weak link in your team? Oh, Mr. A has not done this, so I cannot do this. That is something I hear a lot from engineers. Okay, have you taken the initiative to ask? If he doesn't do that, have you done your own research? I know it's not your primary responsibility. That's why this concept of, I'm a front-end engineer. Okay, you need to appreciate what the back-end engineer is doing. You don't need to be a specialist in it, because that's not your primary role. But you need to appreciate to the point where when you're talking to the back-end engineer, the back-end engineer knows that you know what you're saying. Okay, so initiative is very important. As a talent, you should set goals for yourself and you should ask for constant feedback. You won't always have the best manager. You won't always have the best manager, but you should have your own benchmarks. Which means even if you're in a team, your manager isn't, tasking you enough. You have your own benchmarks of this is the next thing I want to do. So when I'm managing talents, I always also try to create, I look at it from a 20-80% rule. Your work tasks should be 80%. The remaining 20% should be you learning new skills. Because there's a synergy that happens when you're broadening your mind. Okay. I read everything these days. I read everything from economics to policy to engineering to hardware. I read everything. And what happens is, even though I'm not fabricating today, I can understand the intersections between fabrications, software engineering, and how AI will disrupt that sector. So you can already see opportunities. Because as engineers, you need to understand that every 30 days, your value drops. The reason why your value drops is because there's a new technology. The rate of advancement is on a breakneck speed, right? Like the acceleration is a lot. You need to understand that when you're working, if you don't learn any new thing, you're becoming obsolete. The only thing you don't know is when will it dawn on you that you're obsolete. So you have to always learn to stay ahead of the curve. Right. So yeah, I think that's more than enough.
Thank you, sir. So, keywords, the team player, the research-driven, open to feedback, and so thank you very much for that. So, we are going to entertain 5 questions. So I think it is very important to ask questions, right? So, we have any question? Raise your hand peacefully. And we have another announcement after the Q&A. So please, you have a question.
Thank you very much.
Have a question.
Seeing you guys here is making me very happy because when I listen to, let me say, elderly people in the industry talk, one of the things I want to hear at the dates, when did you start? And none of you said you started 2 years ago. I was here in 2011 because it was secondary school, if I'm not mistaken. And coming from that time to where you are now, we're all young people here, and the tech ecosystem is so large, and it's like there are so many people in it. And when you set these very high standards for yourself, like myself, for example, I have very high standards I set for myself. Some days you wake up in the morning and you look at your mirror or whatever, you stop down and that this is what I want to do. And there's this, I don't want to call it doubt, I want to call it a burnout, like, I know to reduce this thing small. And then you're looking at, it's like imposter syndrome. It's like you're doing a lot, but you're not doing anything. I think it's something a lot of young people deal with these days, including myself. And I just want to put this question to everybody, all of you, if you can pitch in. How do you deal with it? Like, coming up, how did you deal with imposter syndrome? How did you deal with those moments when you felt like, do I even still want to do this thing? Am I going fast enough? Am I going to get there fast enough, or am I just wasting my time? Thank you very much. That's my question.
That's an easy. So imposter syndrome is something that everybody suffers from. And guess what? It's something you always suffer from. So even the most successful persons who you think, oh, these guys are not in the, they're still doubting themselves. You get what I mean? But it's very simple. You only have one life. You come to this world once. Even those who believe in reincarnation, you might come out as a ghost, or and you want to make sure that this life that you have, that you're the best that you can be. So there will be days in which you will fail. There will be days in which you will just sound very foolish to yourself. But guess what? There will be days in which you'll be amazed. You do not reduce your goals for yourself because you had bad days. You stare at and you stick at it. Sorry, 2011 that's your goal.
That's for me.
Me and this man are from the 90s.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 90, what do we say now?
There's a 97. 97. Yeah.
So this man has been in Texas 97.
Yeah.
So just to put it in context.
Oh, some of them were not born.
So, and listen. And it tells you, and I know Dayo very well. He's still reading. He's still taking courses. So if you think this is it, I'm sorry.
Nah.
we're still taking courses, we're still reading, and we're still doubting ourselves on something.
Absolutely.
So don't, so if that's the problem, it's always with you. So just move on and get it done.
So I just add that in one sentence. I want you to find the book. There's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You know, read that book. That book will be very helpful, you know, to you. Thanks. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
I actually think life is all about framing. And that's something that, and I also think people, there's a process to almost everything. There's a point where you take a decision. There's a mindset shift. That's almost instantaneous. But a mindset shift happens via a process. Maybe breaking down the wall, you're chipping down at the wall gradually, right, until you find out that you've weakened the base and the wall crumbles. I see life from a how do I frame it kind of strategy. So even in the worst kind of situation, I always try to frame it positively. So when you wake up, you're having these doubts. The question I ask myself is, oh, frame this in a way where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it takes some learning. So I personally see imposter syndrome as a good thing. You can call me a cynic, but probably because I was a consultant. You know, every consultant thinks of himself as the best person alive. You know what it is. I can't remember how old I was then. When I walk into a government agency and I'm going to, as a young man, I'm going to sit with the CIO.
Yeah.
To have a peer
Conversation.
So at that point, I have to think of myself as a CIO, even though I don't have any ACCA. What's the point? It's that life is about framing. That's why I said you have to be an optimist. So when you frame things for the positive, your body can key into that. Secondly, how many people know the formula for compound interest? If you know, just raise up your hand. Compound interest. We don't have mathematics in the room, mathematicians in the room. So,
They Google it.
yeah, Google it. Compound interest. Why am I bringing this up? Everything you do has a compounding effect, whether positively or negatively. If you spend 1 hour learning something every day, by the end of the year, trust me, you'll be very good at it. So when you have a long view about your vision and where you want to be, you have to understand and recognize that it's a process and there's a compounding effect to it. But what you can do to make it, for you to concretize it, for it to be something you can touch, which the mind reacts to, is to have milestones along your journey. So I want to be somewhere in 10 years. In the next 3 months, what do I want to be able to do? Do I want to build something that has an impact? So if you're going on a long journey, you have to have those milestones. And those milestones are things that act as a feedback mechanism to tell you that you're on the right path. Okay? So look at your life from a productive standpoint, that I want to be productive. I want to build, I want to produce. Production can be in different forms. For me, one of the most important things I see as productive is mentoring. When I mentor someone and I see that person go from A to B, I can look back at that and it has a positive feedback to say I'm doing the right thing. So find what works for you, right? And I think those things and a couple of other things can help.
I think we have 2 more questions. Okay.
Thank you so much for all your sessions.
appreciate. And one of the things I learned from you is
Check.
actually the point excuse. And that's one of the things that really big arrows post. So my question is, how best can we deal with excuse?
How best can you
Deal with excuse.
excuse?
Yes. What the excuse? Okay, maybe there's no that worker. There's no transportation. Almost now, like so. How best we can we handle that?
So I'll be practical and realistic. I'll be practical and realistic. Of course, you need a bare minimum, and I think you have it. You have it in MALhub.
Yeah.
MALhub is the bare minimum, right? You have tables, you bring your laptop, you have electricity, you know. I remember when I was so I've done so many things, you know. I remember when I used to do 3D modeling with Maya on my Pentium 3 computer that would take maybe 4 hours to render one frame. Right? The point here is there were so many challenges. You have to understand that first you are living in a time. You know, Mr. Wale said it, this is the best time to be a young person.
Absolutely.
So all you need to understand to put things into perspective, understand the advantages you have.